The battle was lost. The last remnants of the Threxian resistance lay in ruins, scattered across the dying surface of Corvallis Prime. Smoke choked the sky, turning the once thriving capital into a wasteland of fire and ash. The dreaded Vroken Empire had finally won. Supreme Warlord Sirak stood atop the broken remains of the Threxian High Council chamber, his jagged exoskeleton gleaming under the crimson glow of destruction. His forces had annihilated the Threxian fleet, crushed their armies, and exterminated their leaders. Victory was absolute. Resistance is futile, he declared, his voice a guttural growl that echoed across the ruined city. Your world belongs to the Vroken Empire. The surviving Threxians cowered in the shadows, awaiting their end. Their once great civilization was no more, their last hope extinguished. The universe belonged to the Vrokens now, or so it seemed. Then the humans arrived. It started with a whisper, a rumor spreading through the intergalactic networks. Small ships, unlike anything seen before, slipped past the Vroken blockade. They were fast, stealthy, and dangerously unpredictable. The Vrokens laughed at the idea. Humans? Those insignificant primitives from the Sol system. What could they possibly do against the might of the Vroken war machine? They were about to find out. The first strike came without warning. A Vroken supply convoy exploded in a brilliant flash of energy, vaporized before their sensors could react. Then another, and another. Within days, the entire supply chain of the Vroken forces on Corvallis Prime collapsed. Ammunition dwindled. Fuel reserves ran dry. Warships sat idle in orbit, powerless. Who dares attack the Vroken Empire? Warlord Sirak roared as reports flooded in. The answer came in the form of a single message, broadcast across every Vroken channel. You are not welcome here. It was a human voice. At first, the Vrokens dismissed it as an empty threat. They were a species built on war, conquerors of 1,000 worlds. They had crushed empires older and stronger than humanity. But as the days passed, their arrogance turned to frustration, then fear. The humans didn't fight like the Threxians. They didn't line up for glorious battle or challenge their foes in open combat. Instead, they fought from the shadows, striking where the Vrokens were weakest. Every night, Vroken patrols disappeared without a trace. Munitions depots erupted into flames. Automated defense systems turned against their own soldiers. It was as if the planet itself had become their enemy. Warlord Sirak ordered his best hunters to track the humans down. None returned. Then, the real assault began. One by one, the Vroken warships in orbit started vanishing from their sensors. Massive dreadnoughts, each capable of reducing entire continents to rubble, simply ceased to exist. Panic spread through the ranks. How? Where were the attacks coming from? Their scanners detected nothing. Their weapons fired blindly into the void, striking only empty space. The invisible enemy was everywhere. Then came the second message. Leave or be erased. The Vroken forces, once so certain of their superiority, began to falter. Morale crumbled. They had faced powerful enemies before, but never one they could not see. Never one they could not predict. Never one they could not understand. It was then that Warlord Sirak saw them with his own eyes. A Vroken command outpost erupted in a ball of fire, and from the flames they emerged. Figures clad in dark, sleek armor, moving with the precision of machines but the instincts of predators. Their weapons were silent, their tactics flawless. Humans. They struck like phantoms, weaving between enemy fire, disabling entire platoons in seconds. Their technology was decades, perhaps centuries, ahead of anything the Vrokens had encountered. How had they advanced so quickly? How had a species so young become so formidable? Sirak didn't have the answer. All he knew was that his forces were being wiped out. The humans gave no speeches, no ultimatums. They fought with cold efficiency, their only goal to eliminate the invaders and liberate the fallen world. The Vroken forces, broken and terrified, had only one option left: retreat. And so, for the first time in the history of their empire, they fled. As the last Vroken warship jumped into hyperspace, Supreme Warlord Sirak stared at the screen in disbelief. His empire had never known defeat, never been forced to abandon a conquered world. But now, Corvallis Prime was lost. Not to the Threxians, not to some ancient power. To humans. The final message reached him just before his ship disappeared into the void. It was over, until we arrived. Weeks later, Corvallis Prime was transformed. The fires were extinguished, and the ruins began to heal. The Threxians emerged from their hiding places, finding new hope in the wake of their liberation. But as they celebrated, they couldn't ignore the silent figures watching over them. The humans, ever present, ever watchful. Commander Elias Voss of the Terran Expeditionary Force stood atop the ruined council chamber, surveying the reclaimed city. His people had done the impossible. They had driven back an empire feared across the stars. But he knew this was only the beginning. "They'll be back," said Captain Mira Henshaw, standing beside him. "The Vrokans don't take defeat lightly." Voss nodded. "Let them come." He turned his gaze skyward, where Terran warships now patrolled the once hostile space. "We weren't ready before, but we are now." And so, the legend of humanity spread. No longer were they the upstarts, the weaklings, the forgotten species of the galaxy. They were something else entirely. They were inevitable.